There was a time, the Sumerians told, when civilized man was not yet on earth, when animals were only wild and undomesticated and crops were not yet cultivated. At that long ago time there arrived on earth a group of 50 Anunnaki. Led by a leader whose name was Ea, meaning, whose home is water, they journeyed from their home planet Nibiru, planet of crossing and, reaching earth, splashed down in the waters of the Persian Gulf. A text known to scholars as the myth of Ea and the Earth describes how that first group waded ashore, finding themselves in a marshland. Their first task was to drain the marshes, clear river channels, check out food sources, found to be fish and fowl. They then began to make bricks from the clay of the soil and established the first ever settlement on Earth by extraterrestrials. They named the habitat Eridu, which meant, home in the far away or, home away from home. That name is the origin of the name Earth in some of the oldest languages. The time, 445,000 years ago. The astronauts' mission was to obtain gold by extracting it from the waters of the Gulf, gold needed for survival on Nibiru, for there the planet was losing its atmosphere and thus also its internal heat, slowly endangering continued life on Nibiru. But the plan proved unworkable, and the leaders back home decided that gold could be obtained only the hard way by mining it where it was in abundance in southeastern Africa. The new plan called for a substantial increase in the number of Anunnaki on Earth, and in time they numbered 600. There was also a need for an elaborate operation of shipping out from Earth the refined gold and bringing in varied supplies. For that 300 additional Nibiruans were employed as IGI.GI, those who observe and see, operating orbiting platforms and shuttlecraft. Nibiru's ruler, and the Heavenly One, Anu in Akkadian, came to Earth to supervise the expanded presence and operations. He brought along with him 2 of his children, his son En.Lal, Lord of the Command, a strict disciplinarian, to serve as Chief of Operations, and a daughter, an In.Mah, Mighty Lady, Chief Medical Officer. The division of duties between the pioneer Ea and the newly arrived Enlil proved tricky, and at a certain moment of impasse Anu was willing to stay on Earth and let one of his sons act as viceroy on Nibiru. In the end the 3 drew lots. Anu returned to reign on Nibiru. Enlil's lot was to stay in the area of the original landing and expand it to an Eden, home of the righteous ones. His task was to establish additional settlements, each with a specific function, a spaceport, a mission control center, a metallurgical center, a medical center, or as landing beacons. And Ea's lot was to organize the mining operations in southeastern Africa, a task for which he, as an outstanding scientist, was not unsuited. That the task was within his competence did not mean that Ea liked the assignment away from the Eden. So to compensate him for the transfer he was given the title name Enki, Lord of Earth. Enlil might have thought that it was just a gesture. Ea/Enki, however, took the title more seriously. Though both were sons of An, they were only half-brothers. Ea/Enki was the firstborn son, and normally would have followed his father on the throne. But Enlil was a son born to Anu by a half-sister of his, and according to the succession rules on Nibiru, that made Enlil the legal heir, even if not firstborn. Now the 2 half-brothers found themselves on another planet, facing a potential conflict. If the mission to Earth would become an extended affair, perhaps even a permanent colonization of another planet, who would be in supreme authority, the Lord of Earth or the Lord of the Command? The matter became an acute problem for Enki in view of the presence on Earth of his son Marduk as well as Enlil's son Ninurta, for while the former was born to Enki by his official consort, the latter was born to Enlil, on Nibiru, by the half-sister Ninmah. When both were unmarried, Enlil married Ninlil on Earth, Ninmah never married. And that gave Ninurta precedence over Marduk in the line of succession. At the peak of their presence on Earth the Anunnaki numbered 600, and the texts named quite a number of them, as often as not indicating their roles or functions. The very first text dealing with Enki's initial splashdown names some of his lieutenants and the tasks assigned to them. The governors of each of the settlements established by the Anunnaki were named, as were all 10 antediluvial rulers in the Eden. There existed as part of the secret knowledge kept in temples god lists, in which the Anunnaki gods were listed in genealogical succession. Some such discovered lists named no fewer than 23 divine couples who were the precursors of Anu, and thus of Enlil and Enki, on Nibiru. Some lists just named the Anunnaki gods in chronological succession, others carefully noted the name of the Divine Mother alongside the Divine Father's name, for who the mother was determined the offspring's status under the rules of succession. Towering above them all was always a circle of 12 great gods. Beginning with the olden gods, then changing with the times and the generations, the composition of the circle of 12 varied, but always remained 12. As someone dropped off, another was added instead. As someone had to be elevated in rank, someone else had to be demoted. The Sumerians depicted their gods wearing distinctive homed caps, and Zechariah Sitchin, in the cosmic code have suggested that the number of pairs of such horns reflected the numerical rank of the deities. The ranking in the original Sumerian pantheon began with 60, the base number in Sumerian mathematics, for Anu, and continued with 50 for the legal successor Enlil, 40 for Enki, 30 for Nannar, 20 for Utu, and 10 for Ishkur. The female component was given the ranks 55, 45, 35, and 25 for the spouses Untu, Ninlil, Ninki, and Ningal, then 15 for the unmarried Ninma and 5 for the single Inanna, reflecting the generational changes. The latter in time attained the rank 15 and Ninma dropped to 5. It is noteworthy that the two contenders for the succession on Earth, Ninurta and Marduk, were kept off the initial list. Later, when the contest heated up, the Council of the Gods recognized Ninurta as the legal successor and assigned to him the rank of 50, the same as that of his father Enlil. Marduk, on the other hand, was given the low rank 10. These rankings were considered divine secrets, revealed only to selected priestly initiates. The tablets on which the secret numbers of the gods were inscribed, such as Tablet K.170 from the Temple of Nineveh, contained a strict prohibition against showing it to the uninitiated. Frequently, information about the gods was recorded without naming them by their names. Instead, their secret numbers were used, for example, the god 30 for Nannar. But why 12? Sitchin believed the answer lies in another major problem that the Anunnaki faced once they changed their mission from a one-time mineral extracting expedition to a long-term settlement with almost 1,000 of them involved. From their viewpoint, they had come from a planet with a normal orbit to one that crazily runs around the Sun, orbiting the Sun 3,600 times in one Nibiru year one orbital period. Besides the physical adjustments, there was a need somehow to relate Earth time to Nibiru time. Establishing their sophisticated equipment at Mission Control Center in Nippur, a facility called Juranki, Bond Heaven Earth, they certainly became aware of the gradual retardation that we call precession, and realized that the Earth, besides the orbital fast year, also had another longer cycle, the 25,920 years it took the Earth to return to the same heavenly spot, a cycle that came to be known as the Great Year. The Anunnaki considered the family of the Sun to consist of 12 members, the Sun, in the center, the Moon, the 9 planets we know of at present, considering Pluto and one more, their own planet, Nibiru. To them this number, 12, was a basic number to be applied in all celestial matters affecting the bond heaven-earth, including the division of the starry circle around the Sun. Using their detailed sky charts, they grouped the stars in each sky segment into constellations. What shall they name them? Why not after their very own leaders? Here was Ea, whose home is water, who had splashed down to earth in the waters of the Persian Gulf, who loved to sail the marshes in a boat, who filled the lakes with fish. They honored him by naming accordingly 2 constellations, those of the watermen, Aquarius, and the fishes, Pisces. In Sumerian times, he was so depicted on cylinder seals, and the priests that oversaw his worship were dressed as fishmen. Enlil, forceful, strong-headed, and frequently compared to a bull, was honored with naming his constellation as that of the bull, Taurus. Ninmah, desired but never married, had the constellation Virgo named for her. Ninurta, often called Enlil's foremost warrior, was honored with the bow, Sagittarius. Ea's firstborn, stubborn and hard-headed, was likened to a roaming ram, Aries. And when the twins Utu and Inanna were born, it was only befitting that a constellation, Gemini, the twins, be named in their honor. In recognition of Enlil's and Utu's roles in the Anunnaki space activities, the Enlilite priests dressed as eaglemen. As the hierarchical ranks changed and as second and third generation Anunnaki joined the scene on Earth, all the 12 zodiacal constellations were assigned to Anunnaki counterparts. Not men, but the gods, devised the Zodiac. And the number, no matter what the changes, always had to add up to 12. After 40 orbits of Nibiru since the first arrival, the Anunnaki assigned to the gold mines mutinied. A text called Atrahasis describes the events that preceded the mutiny itself, and its consequences. The most important consequence was the creation of Adam. How mankind was brought about. Encouraged by Enki. The mutiny was directed primarily against Enlil and his son Ninurta. Lord who completes the foundation. Enlil demanded that the mutineers be given the maximum punishment. Enki described the impossibility of continuing the harsh toil. Anu sided with Enki. But the gold was still needed for survival, so how would it be obtained? At the moment of impasse, Enki sprang on the Anunnaki leadership his astounding suggestion. Let us, he said, create a primitive worker who shall be capable of doing the work. When the amazed council of the gods asked how a new being could be created, Enki explained that the being he had in mind already exists, a hominid that had evolved on Earth, but had not yet reached the evolutionary stage of the Anunnaki. All we have to do, he said, is to put the mark of the gods on them, to alter them genetically to resemble the Anunnaki. The discussion and the suggested solution are echoed in the Bible, and Elohim said, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness." A being that would resemble the Anunnaki both physically and mentally. This being, Enki promised, will be charged with the service of the gods, that they might have their ease. Enticed by the prospect of relief from the hard toil, the gods agreed. Several Sumerian texts describe how, with the help of Ninmah and after much trial and error, a Lulu, a mixed one, was created. Satisfied that a perfect model had been attained, Ninmah raised him and shouted, "My hands have made it." She considered the moment to mark a momentous event. So should we, for, in the depiction of the moment by a Sumerian artist on a cylinder seal we are shown the most momentous event in the annals of mankind, the moment when we, Homo sapiens, emerged on Earth. To continue following this and other Anunnaki happenings, come to the Anunnaki world. Subscribe to the channel, like, comment and share to expand the Anunnaki world and be part of it.